To this now, Nersa has announced that it has reached a settlement with Eskom after making errors in determining the utilities revenue for this year and the next 2 financial years. Now, this decision may lead to higher costs for consumers. Eskom approached the High Court to have the regulator's revenue determination for the 3 financial years from the 1st of April 2025 to the 31st of March 2028 reviewed and also set aside, citing a 107 billion rand shortfall. Now, after rectifying these errors, Nersa then concluded that Eskom is entitled to an additional 54 billion rand over the next 3 years. Let's delve deeper into this particular story. Now, we're joined by Professor Vally Padayachee, power and energy expert, and he was also a former executive manager of Eskom and a former senior executive at City Power. Prof, it's always a pleasure to speak to you. So, Nersa says, right, in part in its statement, this settlement agreement represents what it calls a fair and balanced resolution. It safeguards, it says, the interests of South African electricity consumers while addressing Eskom's legitimate revenue requirements to ensure operational sustainability. Is it?
Good evening, Bongiwe, and once again, thank you for inviting me to your show, and a good evening to your viewers as well. Well, we may take a step back. I mean, why did we get to this stage? I mean, to keep it simple, according to media reports and the statement released, Nersa had made some mistakes in terms of their calculations, and hence Eskom had made that 107 billion rand claim. And fortunately, I think fortunately because the 54 billion rand that was agreed upon, but the disappointing aspect and the concerning factor is that this is now causing an increase in the tariffs for the end-use customers, meaning the residential, industrial, commercials, as well as the municipalities, Bongiwe. So I'm very disappointed that with these mistakes that seems to be happening quite often from the Nersa side, and the end-use customers are carrying the brunt.
Should we, as customers, be carrying the responsibility for people who made mistakes and did not do their jobs, quite appropriately here and correctly? Because one would say that if because when you read their statement, there is an admission, even in the court papers, right, that they identified errors and these errors resulted in an underestimation of certain components of Eskom's application. But should we be paying for their mistakes?
Well, an obvious answer is obviously we should not be paying for mistakes, but there's no free lunch. Somebody has to carry the can, and if you were to make the argument that the end-use customer does not carry the can for that, it means government or some other agency have to carry the can where there's no money available. So unfortunately, the end-use customer, and that's also in keeping with the law and all of that, that the end-use customer eventually has to carry the can.
And one wonders, though, does Nersa have enough safeguards right now to make sure that this doesn't happen again?
I'm not sure, Bongiwe, because at the end of the day, those assessments, calculations, etc., are done by people, by Nersa employees, and they also get consultants sometimes to assist them, but in the main it's done by people, and people are subjected to human error. And I know Nersa has also lost skills, there's a lot of young people there. So there is a challenge within Nersa as well. I think we can't get away from that.
It boggles the mind, though. Pardon me. It boggles the mind, right? Because you do have an electricity minister who says electricity is unaffordable. He said it even on the show, that people cannot afford electricity. People are finding themselves cash-strapped, right? There's electricity costs, there's transport costs, there's food costs, there's so much going on. And then South Africans don't have a say in a decision like this one that is likely to impact their purse even further, and it's no fault of their own.
Yes, that's also unfortunate. And in fact, with this particular case, because it's it's court review, it's not exposed to public scrutiny. So I fully agree with you. And unfortunately, the price of electricity has gone through the roof. I mean, we're now sitting with energy poverty, where people have access to electricity, but they can't use it because it's unaffordable.
So, in light of this, then, right, how do we begin to fix it for the future to ensure that the system is as tight as possible to make sure that we don't find ourselves with errors, because this simply cannot be allowed to continue?
Well, the solution seems very straightforward. It means that what is the root cause? The root cause is to get the systems and get the scrutiny by Nersa correct. You know, there's no other way. I mean, you can use technology to assist, but at the end of the day, the Nersa systems has to work.
Yeah.
And you cannot allow these mistakes. And it seems like almost every year we're having a Eskom court case. And I will just make one more point here, Bongiwe. The municipalities don't have this recourse to Eskom, I mean to NESA, as Eskom has through the RCA. Municipalities don't have that recourse. So we don't know whether there could be, I'm not saying there could be errors on the municipal side, but municipalities don't have that recourse. Only Eskom has that recourse via the RCA accounting process.
Sure, it's going to be an interesting one. Thank you so much for talking to us. I suppose, you know, even now, we need to continue to try speak to NERSA, speak to municipalities themselves, because as you say, they may not have recourse, but these are municipalities that are buckling under the pressure of not being able to generate enough revenue for people to pay for electricity. Then at the same time, how do you begin to balance this one out with South Africans who are already complaining about the cost of living? Appreciate your time, Prof. Thank you so much for talking to us. That is Professor Padayachee there. He is a former executive manager of Eskom and a former senior executive at City Power. Certainly, this is a very emotive subject, and Professor Vally Padayachee there painting a picture for us as to how did we get to this particular moment.